Since its original release back in 2001, the Honda Jazz has always been known for being a very sensible, reliable and practical family hatchback, and this fourth generation, released in 2020, is no different. The Jazz Crosstar is the most visually different version of the car that's offered. It's a bit more friendly looking, a bit more off-roady, if you will. Got a lot of black plastic trim around the sides, and it looks like a mini SUV kind of. So I do kind of like the styling, and then if you don't like the styling, there are some different versions available too. Got the very large LED headlights, which are very good at night time. A bit more on that later. Got the very large Honda badge with the blue outline to let you know it's electrified. There's no front-facing camera on this particular car, but there is some parking sensors down the bottom. With this fourth generation, Honda decided to make the Jazz a hybrid only. All trim levels of the Jazz come with the same engine and electrical drive system, and that means you get a 1.5 litre petrol engine making 120 brake horsepower. Because of those electric motors, you get a very chunky amount of torque. You get 253 Newton meters at a peak, which is very impressive. Fuel economy is also, again, very impressive. I've been seeing north of 60 miles per gallon without even trying, but more on that in the driving section a bit later in the video. And 0 to 62 miles per hour, not that it's that important for this kind of car, is around 9.7 seconds. Now, underneath the engine bay, you've got the main engine itself. You've got the electrical drive system with all the orange high voltage cabling. Got the 12-volt battery here. You've also got the coolant top-up and the screen wash, all very well laid out. Now, one thing that's quite impressed me is how much stuff is underneath this engine bay for a relatively small space. Honda have just crammed so much stuff in here and hasn't really impacted anything else, so it's very impressive. Now, before we go any further, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Interface Cars YouTube channel. There's lots of content coming every week. Brand new car reviews just like this one, infotainment walkthroughs and EV charging guides. Thank you. For the Jazz in the UK, there are 4 trim levels to choose from. You either get Elegance, Advance, Crosstar Advance like this one, and the top spec Advance Sport. Now, the Crosstar Advance and the Advance Sport are practically the same in terms of the spec sheet. You get all the same equipment, all the same standard features, but the only real differences are that the Crosstar, as we saw a bit earlier, is a slightly taller, looks a bit more off-roady capable, got the roof bars and the water repellent seat. So it's kind of the styling that you want if you go for the top spec version. Now, the pricing, it's quite tight in terms of the pricing range that Honda has gone for. The base spec Elegance is £26,710 and the top spec is £29,205. So there's a couple grand in it really in terms of the space in the market that the Jazz occupies. Other vehicles in the market, they might start a little bit cheaper and they might go up a little bit higher, but the standard equipment that the Jazz comes with is actually really, really good. So that kind of goes with the pricing that Honda's gone for. The on-the-road price of this exact test car I've got is £31,355. There are no optional extras fitted to this car. The only thing that is kind of an optional extra is the paint, which is the only paint you can get, and this one is the white pearl. Compared to other versions of the Jazz, this Crosstar has the tallest ride height out of all the other trim levels. It gives it this mini SUV vibe. So we've got these roof bars up here, which can carry 35 kilograms. We've got the black plastic cladding down the bottom and on the wheel arches. It does look quite nice really, and it gives you a different kind of aesthetic if you're after a top spec Jazz. And like I mentioned earlier, you can get the Advanced Sport, which has pretty much all of the same features, just in a different kind of look. But yeah, this kind of works, and I do kind of like it. This one also has these black door handles, black mirrors, and this black trim across all the doors, which makes the roof itself sort of float a little bit. Looks, as I said, it looks really, really good. For the alloys, these are the only versions you can get on the Jazz Crosstar. They are 16 inches in size and they are silver and black with a diamond cut finish. If you want some other designs, you will have to go for another Jazz trim because there are 5 other options to choose from on those other models. Now, weirdly, the Crosstar only comes in the one colour option, and it's this one here. It's actually called Premium Sunlight White Pearl. Now, it might not come across that well on camera, but in person, it looks quite nice really. It is quite premium, as the name suggests. It's a weird combination of very light blue, white and grey, and it's got this very nice sort of sheen to it. Now, if you are considering the Jazz, I would definitely go and have a look at one of these in person at your local Honda dealership because, yeah, it is a really understated colour, and I don't think it comes across that well on camera. Other versions of the Jazz come in black, grey, white pearl and red, and that red colour is really, really nice. It's a very deep red, and I reviewed the Honda Jazz Sport, the advanced version, a few years ago, and that one came in red and I thought it looked amazing. There's a link up there or down there to check that review out. Now, compared to the other versions of the Jazz, the Crosstar hasn't got a massive amount that's different between the trim levels. The only real thing that is a standout difference, which isn't a massive one, is the white gloss next to the gear stick down here and the white gloss, or sort of ivory, on the steering wheel. They're not kind of the same colour, actually. The other difference is the steering wheel itself. So on the Sport Advanced trims, you'll get a different steering wheel with some yellow stitching, potentially. Whereas on this one, you get a very nice sort of two-spoke design. This steering wheel is actually straight from the Honda E, the little electric car, which I really, really do like. If you want to check my review out of that car, there's a link in the top right corner or the description down below. Very nice and really easy to use steering wheel, and like you'd expect in a Honda, all the buttons are really, really high quality. Everything down here is just a really, really thoughtful design, and even all the buttons, they have a tiny bit of travel to them, but they are really, really good quality too. They got some stalks here for one for the wipers and one for the lights. Everything's in a nice big font, so it's easy to read, and everything feels just reassuringly good quality. It's what the Jazz has been known for a long time, to be fair. Now, one thing I love about the Jazz, and if you remember the EP3 Civic from the early 2000s, that had some pop-out cup holders that were in the dashboard. Instead, you now have very van-like cup holders in the Jazz. So I can put my Greg's coffee over here. There's a cup holder by the driver, and there's a cup holder by the passenger, and another third cup holder in the middle. So that's really, really good. It's quite important because in a right-hand drive car, if you're driving along, to get a cup out of here, you've got a cup, and if you are right-handed, cup, and then this hand, and then drink and back, and you've got to let go of the steering wheel for a brief second. Whereas this, steering wheel, drink, job done. So it's really, really good. For the driver, we've got this very small little display, which has a sort of a square aspect ratio. Along the left-hand side is the battery level for the EV system, or the hybrid system in this car. And on the right-hand side, all your warnings and the fuel level. Very good there. Now, in the middle of the car, you do have the Honda touchscreen, which we're used to for the past few years now. Honda are using this screen on every model they make, essentially, apart from the electric EMY1, which has a big portrait thing. You'll find this screen everywhere. It's very easy to use. If you want a full look at this infotainment system and the driver's display, a very, very in-depth sort of look, there's a link now in the top right corner or the description down below, where I take a full deep dive on everything you need to know about this infotainment screen. But sort of the TLDR is that it's very, very easy to use. It is ever so slightly dated now in 2025, but it does feature wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, and just, yeah, there's no fluff with it, there's no fuss. It just is very, very easy to use. Down the bottom, we have got this very reassuringly manual climate control section. So you've got the climate control here, you've got the auto, got some knobs here for the fan speed, knobs for the temperature and all that sort of good stuff. Very good. And there's some heated seat buttons too. Underneath that section is a 12-volt socket for charging various things and bits and pieces. Two USB-A ports, actually. One for charging, one for data, because if you can use Apple CarPlay wired if you want to, or you can use some USB files from your USB drive and load those on this screen too. No wireless phone charging pad on this trim, so there's a section down there where that might be if they fitted one. A very traditional looking gear stick for the automatic transmission. We've got park, reverse, neutral, D and B, so drive and B. B is your regen for the car. Not the most strongest of systems, but more on that a bit later. In this section down here, we've got the Econ button, handbrake and the brake hold. The only real problem with this sort of setup is that the brake hold doesn't come back on every time you restart the car, so it doesn't remember what status it was, which is tad annoying, but it's fine. Got that little cup holder I mentioned earlier, a very large central bin down here, and another storage section for maybe your keys. It's a very practical and well thought out car, even though it really isn't that wide. Elsewhere, we've got two glove boxes, which I really do like. A top loading one for something, there's quite a nice system there, and underneath that is another massive glove box for your big manual and some locking wheel nuts. Very good. Now, the other difference between the Crosstar Jazz and the other Jazz models are these seats, which are water repellent as standard. I think that's a really good idea because the Crosstar Jazz has a sort of a lifestyle mini SUV kind of vibe, as I said earlier. So I think having waterproof seats is quite a nice touch, just protects the seat. They do have a quite, just a it's a rough feel to them. I think that is just the waterproof material, but absolutely fine. The seats themselves are very, very comfortable. They're not electronic, so you can move the seats up and down and get a very good, comfortable position. And you've got a sort of a rail here to move this seat in and out. But all in all, it's very, very good. Up here, we've got this very premium frameless mirror, which is really nice and good quality. A lot of resistance in the actual movement of it. And you can flick it down to stop some glare, or you can flick it up again. No camera mirror like the Honda E, unfortunately. Up here, got some very simple controls for your lights, the SOS button, and then two nice big sort of sun visors with some little LED lights and a mirror. Very, very good, really. And in the middle of the car, there is a LED light section, which you can turn it on and off, but is very, very good. One of the main highlights of the Honda Jazz for a lot of people has always been the Honda Magic Seats. Honda debuted these on the original Jazz back in the year 2001, and since then the company has added them to the HR-V, but its origins go back to the original Jazz. Now, these seats are very impressive. They let you do two things. They let you get more space in this rear section here, but they also let you get an incredibly flat floor with more depth as well. So to gain more space in the back section, all you do is lift this squab up, push it all the way back, pull this down, and that will lock this rear section in place. And then you can get in here and do the same for this section as well. So this whole section folds up in a 60-40 split, pull that down, and that will lock it in place. And you get this massive area in here to put all kinds of things like pushchairs, wheelchairs, pots and plants, or random stuff from IKEA. That's what I would use it for anyway. So it's a really, really good practical space. And you can see this arm section does lock into the bottom there, and that's kind of how it works. These mats also clip into the sides, which means they won't fold around or roll around the whole place. It's a really, really good practical space. This section here is sort of lumped in a big hump because that's where the fuel tank is. Now, if I fold these seats back down again, all you do is lift that up, lock down there, same again this side, and that goes down as well. And then we can get in the interior and have a look what's what. So, this driver's seat is set up in my driving position, and I'm around 5'7" in height. And one of the major features of the Jazz has always been the rear legroom, and again, this one's no different. The rear legroom is, again, nothing short of incredible. I've got a really, really good amount of space here, really, really good amount of space underneath the driver's seat, and you'll notice that I'm not squatting. It's really, really comfortable, and the bench itself is supporting my legs in a really, really good way. Got some rear headrests as well, which do go up to a good height, and yeah, I've got a really, really good, comfortable position. There's a relatively good amount of headroom too, and this one doesn't have a sunroof, and there's a decent amount of amenities back here. So we've got some map pockets here, got electric windows in the back, a very small sort of door pocket there, and while in the front we had two USB-A ports, in the back we have two USB-C ports for charging devices. So in total there are 4 USB ports with a bit of diversity in terms of the port that your device has. Now, there's no fold-out armrest in the back for cup holders, and that is actually the only thing that seems to be missing back here. It's cup holders for rear passengers, but that's kind of it really, and it's a good open space and very, very comfortable. The rear window on the Jazz is actually a really, really good size. So when you're driving along and looking out the back window, the bottom line of the window line itself, does go below the back of the headrests, which is not something I see very often really. So that is really, really good. So visibility on the Jazz is quite impressive. Got these very large rear lights here with the small Honda badge in the middle with the blue outline again, just like the front. Got the EHEV branding and then the Jazz Crosstar logo. And then underneath here, there is a small reversing camera. Not the most amazing resolution camera, really. The Renault 5 is probably just as bad, actually, as this one, but it does give you a rough idea of where you're reversing to. You don't need a massively high resolution, so that's all good there. Down the bottom, some more black plastic cladding, because, again, this is the rough and tumble Crosstar version. And then the boot itself is manually openable. So you notice here, like a van, it does open very low down and gives you a very good and accessible load lip here. So not often do you have to reach down to touch the load lip, and that gives you a good amount of space. Now in here, there is 304 litres of boot space with these seats folded up. There is this plastic tray like you find in most modern Hondas now. And that gives you access to under the floor storage where there is a massive bin as well, so that's pretty good. There are some vents this side, a small LED light and some coat hooks. If you fold these seats down, that does extend up to 844 litres when you load up to the windows, and then 1,205 when you load up to the roof. So let's fold those seats down now. So what's really nice is that these fold down, they push the squab away, so you can actually get in here really, really easily. And that gives you a massively flat floor. So as the seats themselves, they sort of articulate and do that basically, and the load space in the back of the Jazz is one of its main highlights. So as I mentioned earlier, the Jazz is hybrid only now, and it has been that way since around 2020. At the moment, I'm going 27 miles per hour, and it's in EV only mode. That means the electric motors are driving the wheels, and the engine is sitting there idle, ready to kick in when needed. If I floor it, the engine then kicks in and gives it a bit more boost, and at certain times the engine will decouple itself from the wheels, or at certain times it will kick back in and then drive the wheels on its own if the motors can't keep up with the power required. All in all, I think it's a pretty efficient system, and again, as I mentioned earlier, it's in nearly all of Honda's current lineup. The new Prelude, the Civic, the Honda CR-V, the HR-V. Honda seems to have built their entire current lineup, apart from the e:Ny1, on this hybrid eHEV system. And as I said, it does work pretty well. The fuel economy on the Jazz is really one of its main highlights, apart from those really cool magic seats. Honda themselves quote around 58 miles per gallon, and I've been seeing about that. I've been seeing 57.7 mpg over the past few days of driving the car, and that's around 120 miles. Obviously, you'll need to get a bit more data over a longer period of time to figure out if this car is actually going to be really cheap to run. But based on my driving and the fact I haven't been trying to get this car to be efficient, I do think that's pretty alright. Now, the only little downside with that engine and hybrid setup is the same problem I found in the last Honda Jazz I tested a few years ago and the Honda HR-V. It's the fact it is a tad loud when you do accelerate, and that can put people off from accelerating quite quickly when they need to in certain scenarios, because it sounds like you're going to break the car. But again, in reality, it's not going to do any damage to the car at all. It's just that it just sounds a little bit rough, and that's the only thing. That's the only thing I can find that's marginally bad or a bit of a problem when you drive the car. It's the lack of refinement when you are accelerating hard. But as I said, apart from that, it's absolutely great. Now, visibility is excellent. The rear window on this car is absolutely huge. It goes down below the headrests in the back, and as we saw a bit earlier, the boot itself opens really wide. It's a massive opening with a lot of space in the boot and a very, very low lip to get items in. But that also has meant that the visibility is excellent. The A-pillars here are very thin. We've got these little quarter lights here. We've got very large mirrors as well, and we've got that humongous back window, and the mirror itself does seem to be quite zoomed in on that back window. It just provides a very visible and very easy to maneuver car, and there is a reversing camera again, as we saw earlier. It is a tad low resolution, but it does kind of get the job done. Not a massive problem. But yeah, all in all, the visibility in the current Jazz is very, very good. Now, also in terms of the comfort, it's really, really comfortable. We're sitting on 16-inch alloy wheels here. Nothing fancy, nothing huge, nothing in your face, but it seems to soak up the bumps and stuff on our UK roads in a very, very nice way. It doesn't have a lot of body roll, not too much to make it uncomfortable. The ride isn't choppy at all. It just is very, very soft and a very, very relaxing drive. And once you combine that with the regen system that's built into this car, it just provides a very relaxing drive. So in here we've got two different modes. We've got D and B. So D mode will be more of what someone's used to in an automatic gearbox, so it gives you a very coasty feel. So it will just roll a lot when you let off the accelerator. Again, much like a normal automatic gearbox will. So I've let off here and it's slowing down relatively slowly, really. I'll put into B. You get, I'd say, 30% on a brake pedal potentially of braking performance, but what it's doing is it's knocking power back into that small battery that the Jazz has got in order to make itself more efficient. It's kind of, well, some people compare this kind of thing to an EV. It's really nothing like how an EV would work, but it has got very similar traits. So in an EV you'll have a lot stronger regen because recuperating the battery power is quite paramount really, and you can actually recoup a lot. So the regen level on this car isn't that strong, but it does, as I said, it does get the job done in certain scenarios. So I've been driving this in B mode and it just gives me a bit more regen. There are some modes on this screen, as you'll see in my infotainment guide, where you can see exactly where the power's going at any given time, but you can kind of work it out. So you can hear the engine doing its thing. Once it's revving higher, it's obviously generating more power, and it's a fairly simple system really. Now in terms of power, it's not the most powerful system, but it is a pretty good amount of power for what this car is. So we've actually got 120 brake horsepower from that whole system combined, and that means 0 to 62 miles per hour is handled in 9.7 seconds. Again, those figures aren't really doing it for me, but the target audience of this car don't need a car that's fast, and it does accelerate in a fairly acceptable way. And once you accelerate, that engine kicks in quite loudly, but you are moving along the road quite nicely actually. I did say earlier that the Jazz is quite comfortable. It does have a bit of bounce, to be fair, at 60 miles an hour, 53 miles an hour, but it isn't an uncomfortable car by any means at all. The steering also is incredibly light. As I mentioned earlier, this steering wheel is from the late Honda E, and it's a really nice wheel to use. It's very, very light. It's got these 2 spokes here with nothing at the bottom. Just a joy to use day to day. And also, it goes without saying that the Jazz is not a car to thrash around some B roads, but it doesn't feel unhappy about doing this. It doesn't feel wallowy. Suspension is, as I said, it's soft, but it's not really hard. It's not going to be really roly-poly, if that's the right word, but it does the job it's made to do, essentially. It's a very, very competent car. So right now, this is the manual headlights. You can click it away for manual high beams, click it back towards you for automatic, and then towards you again to switch back to manual. These are very bright LED headlights. The automatic mode is very good at figuring out if there is a car in front of you or coming towards you. There is now a car coming towards me, and it has instantly seen the car ahead, and it turns the high beams off instantly, and then back on again once the car goes past. So after a week with the Honda Jazz Crosstar, what are my final thoughts? Well, just like every other version of the Jazz, this Crosstar has great fuel economy. I've been getting over 60 mpg. It's got great practicality with the magic seats inside, and it's also got a very comfortable, relaxing interior. It's very, very good to drive. Now, my only little niggle is the engine, which is slightly gruff when you do accelerate, but apart from that, I think the Honda Jazz is a very, very good car. Now, the Crosstar adds those water repellent seats for if you live in a rainy area. It's got the slightly taller ride height if you do have mobility issues. So I think those little extras are a great option for a certain type of person. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching my review of the Honda Jazz Crosstar. If you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing. My name's Alex, and I'll see you again next time.